Line Sierra, 2-0 personnel. Line Alpha, patrolling what appears to be a headquarters, right?
Yeah, say again, Line Lima, over.
Roger. I say again, Line Lima, 3-8, Sierra, Papa Victor.
Solid copy. Do you have any remarks, over?
Hey, firm. Remarks, all personnel appear to be on guard. Very weak posture, over.
Roger, solid copy on all. Brown horse out.
Two sevens hit! 2-7's out! No, 2-7's down!
Good evening, I'm Eric Thompson.
Let's stop right there and rewind all the way back to where the story all started. This year's theme is on ordinary people in extraordinary times. After hours of research, I still didn't know which Canadian I wanted to focus on. I asked my friends, family, coaches, until one day I finally asked a teacher. It was her that set me on the path that found the perfect person I could do my report on. This person's name is Michelle Lang, a young Canadian woman who was born and raised in Vancouver, BC. It turns out that Michelle and myself have a lot more in common than being born in Vancouver. For starters, she and I attended the same elementary school, which is Maple Grove Elementary. Less than a block away from that same school, there's McGee Secondary School, where she went to high school and graduated in 1993. This is the same school I attend now and where I currently continue my studies. After graduating from high school, she continued her education at Simon Fraser University, where she got to find out what she really wanted to do. During one of her co-op terms, she got a job at the Prince George Free Press, where she got to go out in the field and report on current events. That's when her interest for reporting and journalism skyrocketed. After her co-op term, she received a job in Moose Jaw, working for the Moose Jaw Times-Herald, before she eventually left for the Regina Leader post. After gaining more experience, she finally forged her way to the Calgary Herald, where she won the National Newspaper Award for exceptional journalism skills. Michelle didn't stop there. In 2009, she hopped on a plane to Kandahar, Afghanistan, so she could educate the Canadian public about what was happening in the war against terror. Before leaving, she asked her fiancé, Michael Louis, what he wanted to read in the papers. He replied with, "I want to read about the good stuff they're doing over there." Michelle wanted to report as a medical reporter, like she had done back home in Calgary. Her reports were to be on the hospitals that were in that region. With all of this in her mind, she set her efforts to cover on how the Canadian and NATO forces were helping to improve everyday life for the war-stricken people of Afghanistan. She practically gave her life to get these type of stories. In Kandahar, she regularly posted on her blog about the war in Afghanistan. However, even with the intense conflict occurring right before her eyes, she wanted the attention to be on the good deeds that individuals and groups are doing in the war-torn country. For example, she wrote about how Afghani civilians were flocking to the Kandahar base so they may receive work experience and higher wages, how married soldiers were spending their first Christmas together in Afghanistan, and how the Canadian-supported Afghan army overtook Taliban-occupied territory. On the morning of December 29, 2009, Michelle got ready to go out on a patrol in the surrounding area. They were to be traveling on the same road that was commissioned by NATO, where at-risk young men were hired so that they wouldn't join the Taliban, since they were making living wages by building the road. At about 4 p.m., the light armored vehicle that Michelle and other soldiers were driving in drove over an IED, improvised explosive device, that flipped them over and killed the 5 passengers inside, including Michelle Lang.
The Canadian military has decided at this moment not to release any of the names of the people involved in this blast. We can tell you one of the names, though, a journalist, the first Canadian journalist to die under the embedded process here in southern Afghanistan. Michelle Lang worked with the Calgary Herald and filed to the CanWest chain of newspapers in Canada. She'd been in Afghanistan for just a few weeks, and she had spent a lot of that time in the field bravely going and putting on a helmet and body armor and going where the Canadian soldiers go, seeing what they did, giving a first-hand account of the Canadian mission in southern Afghanistan. and reporting in that way has cost her her life. She was in a light armored vehicle when the IED blast went off. She died when Canadian soldiers died as well, and she will be greatly missed.
Some would say that Michelle was an ordinary person in the wrong place at the wrong time. She risked and gave her life so she could educate Canadians back home about the war in Afghanistan. I would have to say that she was an extraordinary person in an extraordinary time. Hi, I'm Gaurav Varshney, and I hope that all of you enjoyed my video presentation on Michelle Lang. I wanted to drive home that it's important to appreciate all the sacrifices that Canadians made so that we may live a peaceful life. I'm not just talking about the ones that fought in wars. I'm talking about any Canadian that went out of their way to make another person's life better. Also, for the others that might be watching this across Canada, I highly encourage you to visit the National War Museum and to visit the country's capital. I got to go to Ottawa last spring with Encounters with Canada. It's a program especially designed to get Canadian youth interested in their country. If you're worried about costs, don't be. The federal government subsidizes the majority of the cost, and also some provincial governments take it a step further and subsidize the cost even more. So I encourage you to visit your school counselor so you may also come to Ottawa and visit the National War Museum.